Okay, we are going to look at this next method of creating halftones by using the mode grayscale and bitmaps. In this situation, you're going to need to create a new file. You can't do it directly in your source file. So let's make a new file new. And I want this to be grayscale here. And then try to make it compatible with your source file and say create. So this is the same size as my source file. If it is in RGB, you can go to image mode grayscale and change it up there. So I'm going to fill with a gray. To fill, I'm going to do edit, fill, and I'm filling with the foreground color, and I'll say OK. Now that I have a gray in there, I'm going to go to image mode, and let's make this bitmap. In here, we're going to put this to halftone screen, and I'm going to say OK. All of this refers to how the halftone is going to be. So the frequency refers to the size, the angle refers to like the angle, and the shape. So let's start with round first, and I'll say OK. You can see these dots are pretty tiny. In order to like redo it, I have to undo. So edit, undo. Now we're back to just our gray, and then let's do it again, bitmap. Halftone screen, okay, and I'm gonna put like a bigger number in here, so let's do 100, and I'll say okay. Also, look at the value of this gray. It's pretty light. So let's get a gray that's a little more medium gray. I'll say okay. So let's go back. So edit, undo. And now let's fill with this gray. Quick way to fill, Option delete on a Mac or Alt backspace on a PC. I'm going to press image mode bitmap. I'll say OK, and let's try this now. See how it's a bit darker? So you're gonna have to like kind of play around with things in here, and that's the difference between bitmap. Let's keep going, and I'm gonna now create a gradient. So let's get the gradient tool. You need to have a gradient that's going from black to white, and I'm gonna click and drag to make my gradient now. You have a lot of different options here for gradients. So let's try this one just for fun. Image mode bitmap. Say okay, and let's do like 20, and I'll say okay. So now you can see what that does. The nice thing about creating a bitmap is that you can make these different patterns. So we have round, let's try diamond. So that looks kind of interesting. And then I'm just hitting undo, Command Z to go back to my grayscale mode. So let's try now lines. So that's kind of interesting. You can also, let's just do like a regular gradient. And then let's try image mode bitmap, and we're going to do halftone screen. So we've got line, square, crosses. I'll try squares this time. So this just shows you how it looks every time. So okay, say I like this and I want to put it in my source file. I'm going to do select all, edit, copy. I'm going to go to my window, and I'm going to go to my source file, and now I'm going to paste. So it's going to come in as your layer. Let's call this halftone, and you can see it's in black and white. Now that it's in here, let's try to blend it with some of the coloring that's happening. I'm going to set it to the very bottom, and I want to make it blend with my background color. So up here it says normal. We can change that to screen. So now it's actually blending with the color that's the color layer below it. We can also set this opacity down so that it's not completely opaque. And so that looks pretty cool. I'll show you now how to take one and actually attach it to a certain area. Say you don't want it in the background, and say instead you only want a bitmap in a certain area, for instance, maybe just the hummingbirds. So I'm gonna put my halftone layer right on top of the layer that I want it only to be on. And we need to attach this. So we're gonna press Option or Alt on a PC, Option on a Mac, and you'll notice that we have a square with a little arrow. So I'm gonna click, and now you can see this layer is only showing up where there are pixels on this layer, and this is what's called a clipping mask. Now I'm going to set this mode to screen, and I can also change the opacity as well. So that's how I would use a halftone. Say I don't want the halftone to show up in certain areas. I could actually take the eraser tool and just erase it. Or I could that's working destructively where I'm actually erasing pixels. I could also put a layer mask on this halftone layer. So to make a mask on here, I'm going to click this, which is layer mask. And I'm going to paint with the paintbrush tool, which is here, B for brush. I'm going to paint in black, make sure you're inside of the mask. So if I paint in black, it's going to hide. And if I paint with white, it's going to show. So that's one way to hide or show your halftone clipping mask layer without actually erasing anything.